Way before the first selfie was ever taken, the ancient world gave us a warning. In the myth told by the Greeks and Romans, there was a young man named Narcissus. He fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. Mesmerized by the image staring back at him, he could not look away. Eventually, he drowned in it. Today, that reflection is no longer found in water. It lives in follow accounts, in likes, in curated identities, in the endless need to feel exceptional. If you're watching this, you may be feeling a particular kind of exhaustion. Not just stress, but emotional fatigue. Maybe it's a boss who takes all the credit, a partner who makes you feel invisible, a friend who only reaches out when they need an audience. You've heard the advice, just walk away. But real life is rarely that simple, and the pop psychology labels floating around online often miss something deeper. So today, we are going beyond the buzzwords. We are going to understand narcissism the way clinical psychology understands it, not as a viral term, but as a spectrum of personality traits. Because to navigate the people in your life, and perhaps even yourself, you need clarity, not cliches. Narcissism is a spectrum. First, we need to dismantle a myth. Narcissism is not just a personality disorder. It exists on a continuum. Every human being carries some degree of it. Healthy narcissism is not the enemy. It is the confidence to lead a team, the pride in sharing your achievements, the drive to pursue ambition. In balanced amounts, it fuels growth. But pathological narcissism is different. The dividing line is simple. People get hurt. At the core of all unhealthy narcissism is what psychologists call interpersonal antagonism. It is a combination of entitlement, exaggerated self-importance, and a profound lack of empathy. The key word here is empathy. When someone consistently struggles to see others as equally important, the damage begins. The Big Five, the recipe of personality. To truly understand narcissism, psychologists often use what is known as the Big Five personality traits. Think of them as the 5 core ingredients that shape human behavior: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Narcissism tends to emerge when you combine very low agreeableness, which means high antagonism, with certain other traits. And this creates 2 distinct forms you likely encounter every day. The first face, grandiose narcissism. This is the version most people recognize. Grandiose narcissists are typically high in extroversion and ambition. They are charismatic, confident, and socially dominant. In the short term, they often succeed. They can be magnetic leaders, captivating performers, influential personalities. They thrive on attention. But beneath that charm lies a fragile ego that cannot tolerate criticism. When challenged, they may react with defensiveness, rage, or dismissal. Their confidence appears unshakable, but it depends entirely on constant validation. The second face, vulnerable narcissism. The second form is quieter and often more confusing. Vulnerable narcissism contains the same core entitlement, but it is mixed with high neuroticism, anxiety, and insecurity. These individuals may appear shy, sensitive, or withdrawn, but internally, they often believe they deserve special recognition that the world has failed to give them. They may see themselves as misunderstood geniuses, or perpetual victims of unfair treatment. Rather than seeking dominance through charisma, they seek control through emotional gravity, through guilt, sadness, or moral superiority. If you have ever felt like you are walking on eggshells around someone who is easily offended, constantly slighted, or chronically resentful, you may have encountered this form. They do not demand admiration openly. They demand it through emotional pressure. And that can be just as exhausting. Where does narcissism come from? Is narcissism born or made? Research suggests it is roughly a 50-50 split. Around half of narcissistic traits appear to be heritable, linked to temperament and biology. The other half emerges from environment and upbringing. Parenting plays a role, but not always in obvious ways. Children placed on pedestals, constantly told they are superior, may develop grandiose patterns. Children raised in emotionally cold, critical, or controlling environments may develop the vulnerable form. But here is what is often overlooked. Underneath the surface of pathological narcissism, there is usually shame. Deep, often unconscious shame. To cope with feelings of inadequacy, neglect, or early emotional wounds, the individual constructs a false self, an image of perfection and superiority. When you criticize that image, even gently, it does not feel like feedback. It feels like annihilation. That is why accountability can trigger disproportionate rage. Because you are not just challenging behavior, you are threatening the mask, the modern landscape. Our culture amplifies narcissistic tendencies. Social media platforms reward visibility, comparison, and constant performance. Attention has become currency. In this environment, validation is quantifiable. It's measurable. It's addictive. And it reinforces the belief that worth equals visibility. But there is an even subtler phenomenon emerging: spiritual narcissism. As traditional status structures shift, some individuals turn to spirituality not for connection, but for superiority. Meditation becomes a badge. Enlightenment becomes branding. Virtue becomes hierarchy. It is ego disguised as transcendence. And because it wears the mask of morality, it can be harder to detect. How to protect yourself. Understanding narcissism is not about diagnosing everyone around you. It is about protecting your psychological boundaries. First, develop what we might call an internal narcissism barometer. If someone is extraordinarily charming but something in your intuition feels unsettled, pause. Charm can be a performance, and performances require audiences. Second, practice what we can call observe, don't absorb. When dealing with narcissistic patterns, shift into the role of a scientist. Notice behaviors. Track patterns. Stay emotionally neutral when possible. You are not required to internalize someone else's distortion. Their entitlement is not your responsibility. Their insecurity is not your burden. Third, set boundaries consistently. Narcissistic individuals often do not understand why you are saying no, not because they are confused, but because they lack the empathy to see your needs as equal to theirs. Boundaries are not negotiations. They are statements, and consistency matters more than explanation. Over time, many narcissistic personalities back down, not because they have transformed, but because pushing no longer yields reward. Looking inward. Finally, there is the most difficult question. What if you see some of these traits in yourself? The answer is not to crush your confidence or diminish your ambition. The path forward is not self-rejection. It is communal activation. Shift the focus from being the most important person in the room to becoming the most valuable contributor in the room. Real power is not extracted from others. It is created through contribution. Real success does not scale across a lifetime through ego. It scales through integrity, through reciprocity, through the relationships you build and sustain. Because in the end, the reflection that matters most is not the one staring back at you. It is the one visible in the lives you impact. And unlike Narcissus, you do not have to drown in your own image. You can step away from the surface and choose connection over admiration, empathy over entitlement, and legacy over attention. If this gave you clarity, consider reflecting on one relationship in your life through this lens. Awareness is the first boundary.